Hi, good day everyone. My name is Yap from Bagan Specialty Marketing team. Today I'm glad to invite Ms. Kang from Bagan Specialty Center to give us a sharing on the topic about positive parenting. Ms. Kang is a clinical psychologist in Bagan Specialty Center. And without further ado, please welcome our speaker for today, Ms. Kang.
All right, good evening everyone. Thank you again for tuning in for tonight's session. I hope you all had a lovely weekend so far. Today, basically, I'll be talking about parenting and how do we use one of the positive parenting techniques, which is behavioral management, to manage these behaviors in our children and possibly other disciplinary issues as well that some of us might be struggling with. Okay. So today I'll basically talk about some very common parenting styles first, and then we'll go into theoretically how do we manage behaviors. Okay. And then we'll also talk about our managing our own parenting anxieties as well. How does that actually affect the way or the style that we are actually using to parent our children? And last but not least, some tips to enforce positive parenting. Before I go further into, we'll be going through the sharing today in a more theoretical manner, so it might be a little bit heavier for some of us, but just if there are parts of it that might not be as clear, please feel free to raise your message section in the Facebook Live area. So, and then I'll try to answer them as much as I can, maybe at the end of it. Okay. In relation to parenting style, all of us have different personalities, different parents as well. So incorporate some of our personalities into our parenting and how we manage few things that will determine the style that we are using to parent. Some of them are what kind of disciplinary strategies we use, form and nurture that we put in, that we incorporate into what kind of communication styles that we are using as well, and also very important part is how much we expect in terms of our children's maturity and how much control that we're behaviors and their lifestyle as well. So in accordance to these determinants, here are 4 main parenting styles that is commonly seen among all of us. So the first one will be authoritarian parenting style. Then we have the permissive style, the authoritative style, and the off style. So I will be going into the four of these styles one by one. Some of us might feel like we are familiar with the styles that we're using. So let's see if we can understand our parenting styles a little bit more, and if we can identify which style is actually our preference and which is not, but we might be without realizing, and ones are the ones that we want to switch into or to newly adopt into. So the first one would be the authoritarian parenting style. This one is characterized by largely unresponsive style, meaning we might not be as focused in terms of your child's emotions or communication. Okay, so it might not be as nurturing, and the authoritarian style will be much more demanding as well, with very high expectations, very rigid, probably sometimes a little bit too strict in terms of rules, not very flexible. This style would be more of a dictatorship, where parents will demand blind obedience. Okay, so this style might be common to some of us, or we might have experienced this kind of parenting style from our parents as well. And this is actually a very common style in among Asian parents and Asian culture, where we want our kids to actually obey and respect parents without questioning the authorities as much. Okay. If done overboard, an authoritarian parenting style might result in such outcomes. May not be as healthy or positive as we want it to be. In the long run, your child might have a lower sense of self, lower confidence, okay? Poorer communication skills. This might be a result of because when we are often asked to obey blindly without questioning, so we might not, that child might not be used to expressing themselves as much, might not be used to expressing how they feel, how they think, or might not be often involved in discussions as well. As a result, the child might also grow up to be unassertive, okay? Even at times where voicing up might be required. In that sense, that child might grow up to be an individual who might find it difficult to voice up. It is needed to at times. And in worse cases, in more severe cases, this might result in delinquency or rebelliousness, especially in the teenage years, okay? Because there's no room for debate, but at the same time, when there is too little room for discussion, then it results in the opposite instead than what we might have expected or wanted it to. Have the next one would be the permissive parenting style. This one is the total opposite of the previous one, the authoritarian parenting style. Okay, permissive style is much more warm and much more responsive, but there might be not much lines or limits that might be imposed to the child. Okay, there may be little or no rules or punishments. Okay, even if a child misbehaves, it might be dismissed or not punished, or there won't be consequences. Okay. And the permissive parent might be overindulgent as well for their own kids. So these are some things that we might need to be aware of. Okay, some of the outcomes that might be a result of the permissive style is that some children might become a little bit more entitled or egocentric, meaning that they might not be able to understand that certain needs, sometimes when outside of home or with other individuals aside from parents, that needs cannot be met all the time, so they might be more demanding in that sense. To be insecure. This is possibly because when too much flexibility is given to the child, and there's no guidelines, sometimes children might not know that there are times where they also need certain limits. So sometimes they might not know that whether what they're doing are right or what they're doing are wrong. So they might just go all out, or they might be just impulsive and just do what they want to do. In that sense, sometimes they might not be sure about whether what they're doing are right or not as well. So they might want people to also praise, or they might look for attention to validate that what they're doing is okay, which is similar to what they are experiencing at home. So when there's no rules, there are not guidelines, no guidelines, but they might still be doing this behavior over and over again, without being punished or without experiencing appropriate consequences, or they might even be praised even if they're misbehaving. Okay? So when in the outside society or in school, for example, where rules are more present, they might feel more insecure in that sense. Okay. Again, also because of lack of guidelines, some children might also demonstrate poorer social skills. Okay, again, how they communicate with parents at home might be different with how they should communicate in school, for example. So they might be, like I mentioned earlier, they might be a little bit more impulsive. They might not as understanding or not as empathetic towards people around them. Okay, because they might become more demanding and more entitled. Okay, so here are some of the children's personalities that might be shaped due to permissive parenting styles. We'll move on to the third one, which will be authoritative parenting style. This one is a good balance of warmth and also providing appropriate and clear rules and guidelines as well. So with this style, there will be appropriate punishments, meaning punishments that are actually suitable for different types of misbehaviors. While there are punishments that are delivered, the authoritative parents will also be nurturing and also forgiving to mistakes. Okay, this is a little bit different from the previous one, which was the authoritarian parenting style. Okay, which was much more unforgiving of mistakes. Okay, in that sense, this is a more democratic and flexible style. Parents will value independence from their children and for their children as well. Okay. So, as a child who has grown up in a family, this child might grow up to be a person who has a stronger sense of self, stronger individuality, confident. They might know what they want, what they need, and what they don't need, or what upsets them or what hurts them. Okay, they'll be able to form healthier interpersonal relationships. They can communicate well to their friends, to their peers, to their colleagues, to their partners and their spouses. Okay, they are more assertive as well to voice what they need to, rather than being more passive, and they are also more self-regulated. So they know they're able to acknowledge if they're not feeling well or not feeling happy. Doesn't really affect them that much, in that sense that they will be able to cope by either through expressing or either through solving their issues independently, and they will be able to regulate their lifestyles in a better manner independently, rather than relying on other people around them. Okay. Last one, which will be the uninvolved parenting style. This one is totally cold and unresponsive. Okay, these are parents who might also be more neglecting of their child. There might also be no rules. They might be indifferent to their children's emotional needs. So such parents might still be able to provide in terms of finances, or providing for a place to stay, to support their children on a need-to basis, but they might not be as capable of communicating in terms of emotions. For example, they might not be able to ask how their child's been doing for today or for the past week, and if the child is upset and seeking for comfort from that parent, then an uninvolved parent might not be capable of doing so. Okay, so that there will be a much lower emotional involvement. Okay, so there's physical presence, but there might not be an emotional presence in the family. So as such, similarly, if the child has been with uninvolved parents, they might also have a poorer sense of self. Okay, they might doubt themselves a lot, wondering whether when I feel upset or when I feel happy, is it actually okay to feel that way? Because they've never really had the chance to express it properly. They might also have problems with intimacy, again, because they've not really learned or seen how their parents actually express themselves emotionally. They've not seen how people can be close emotionally with each other. So they might not know how to treat their spouses or their friends even, or their partners properly. Okay? They might socially isolate themselves as well. Some might be comfortable being on their own, but some might actually not. Some might actually still be seeking for connections, but are not able to form properly meaningful ones. Not be able to feel involved in common conversations, or it might not just as simply just feel like they offer emotional support, just simply, or even just simply confiding towards other people. That might be a difficulty as well. So they might be more in the sense that they keep emotions to themselves. Okay, and unable to invest in relationships emotionally. So it's similar to how they've experienced from their parents. So there will be certain issues in terms of this that they might not have learned to apply in their social relationships. Okay. One more parenting style, which is not actually theoretically listed, but it's a common one that I myself have seen, and it's also a more commonly known style, I think, in this recent years, which is the parenting style. So this one, parents who are helicopter parents generally, they are generally known to hover. They hover over their children. That they might get a little bit more over involved. Okay, so meaning little things. What time your children shower, when they eat, have they had their meals in school, have they done homework? So they might be very much over involved in that sense. Okay, for example, they need to know, even as a teenager, okay, what are they doing every second of the day or every minute of the day? Okay, they might be over focused. Okay, meaning they are, for parents who are helicopter parents, they might be too engrossed. So all of their lives, they might be very focused on their children's needs. For example, picking a restaurant, they might be focused on what their child likes to eat, what their child does not like to eat, to a sense that it's so difficult to make decisions, to a sense that they might be over-sacrificing their own needs as well. Protective. Some parents might not want their child to feel hurt, but by doing so, sometimes we are limiting our children's experiences in experiencing losses and failure. Some parents might, pull out their kids from competition, like, of winning. Okay, that I've encountered before as well. Parents who are over-controlling, like I mentioned earlier, having to control what they're doing all the time, having to limit pleasuring activities, even though the child has been at school in the morning and going to tuition for the whole of the afternoon and then coming home at night, they're still not able to relax. Okay. Over perfecting the lives of the children as well. So some parents might feel like it's very important for them to, shape this road that's lying in front of their children. They have to shape it properly so that they grow up to be successful people. But sometimes when we are doing so, we're also over perfecting it, because as parents, maybe some parents might have had past experiences where they have had regrets, about not picking certain choices and coming down this road. We might feel like we've seen a lot, but this is life. It's very difficult to perfect life, and everybody's roads are different. But sometimes our anxieties get the better of us, and then we tend to want to even make our children's lives as perfect as it can be. But the thing is, sometimes it might not be necessary to do so, because when we do that, when our children don't experience imperfection, they might not even know at all like what it actually feels like or what it actually is, and that it's actually okay to be imperfect. So when we are talking about expectations in this modern era, in the past, our parents might be more of an demanding kind of style, like I mentioned earlier, the dictatorship kind of style. In the olden days, you have to either perform in a certain way, then only you'll be considered to be successful. But in the modern days, in the present days, this kind of very obvious expectations are not that much imposed on children anymore. But what I personally have seen is these kinds of unobvious expectations. So parents are unconsciously perfecting the lives of their children without realizing that, even though we are not saying to our kids, hey, you have to get all A's, or hey, you have to get 100% in your exam, for example. We're not saying these things, but when we are doing a lot of things behind our children's backs, we are preparing a lot of things unconsciously for them. By doing so, we're actually also imposing on our children that life has to be perfect. So this is a more commonly seen style that I also have personally experienced with a lot of my patients as well. So which is why this is something that I wanted to bring up today. So let's see if some of us can relate to that. So as I've mentioned, the child will have also a poor sense of self because everything has been laid out for them. This is also because that the thing is there is no clear guidelines here. But it's also not that they have the space and the ability to decide for themselves as well. So the guidelines are not clearly given to them, but it's strictly imposed to them behind without knowing it. Meaning parents are actually doing everything. So they when they grow up, they might not know actually what they want, what they need for themselves, or what is actually good for them. They also might not be confident. They might need to constantly go back to their parents to ask, hey, like, mom, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? So as an adult, we don't want our children to grow up to not be confident of their decisions. They might also be immature, insecure, and some children at a young age might also turn out to be much more competitive than how children who are much more kiasu. It might be because of environments, okay, because they have been taught, or their lives have been tailored in a way that they have never experienced failure, or when there are opportunities to experience failure, they'll be pulled out of it, okay. And earlier, remember the over-perfecting part, because life is so perfect for them, so they might also feel like for whatever they do, it needs to be perfect in order to be, a proper life, okay. They might also have poor social skills as well. Again, this is also because of the lack of opportunity, probably to interact with other people healthily. Or they might be protected from friends whom parents feel like are not proper or not appropriate, okay. They might be protected from people with children with different personalities, where there might not be right or wrong, but kids need to learn that if they don't like how they're being treated, for example, they need to learn to voice out themselves, okay, rather than being taken away from other children, rather from being told that you don't have to hang out with this child anymore, or withdrawing your child from a certain tuition class because that child is there, okay. So there's no right or wrong in how children should react, but it's a matter of how they can adapt to changes in environments, to differences in personalities, okay. So ultimately, there are a lot of different styles, but bear in mind that parents, we've grown up in different upbringings as well, so it might have shaped different personalities too. So now that we have gone through some of the common parenting styles earlier, so do a bit of a reflection and see if what style are you practicing right now, or what style do you want to practice, and then do you want to incorporate a bit of this and a bit of this style, a bit of that style in different situations, or do you just want to change into a different one? So remember this principle, the Goldilocks principle. Remember the story of Goldilocks and the 3 bears, right? There were 3 bowls of porridges. One was too hot, one was too cold, and then one was just right. So remember this as well when we are parenting our kids. Sometimes going too hot, too far in, too much involved, too controlling, too demanding, it might be bad. But being totally cold and indifferent towards our child's needs, or when our children comes crying to us, we feel like don't cry, you're a boy, you shouldn't cry, that might be a little bit too cold as well, okay. So being it would be better to just actually tailor the temperature, for example, to different needs of your children, okay. So maybe a little bit of hot, a little bit of cold might be just right, okay. So after this, just go back and reflect and see which style that we want to newly adopt and what areas do we need to change, okay. I'll answer them later, but I'll move in to the management part, okay, because this is why we're really here today, okay. So theoretically speaking, for every behavior, meaning there's a trigger, okay, there will be a situation or something that has caused the behavior, okay, and as a result of this certain behavior that the child has adopted, no matter whether it's a good behavior or a bad behavior, there will be a trigger, and then there will be also a consequence because of that or that bad behavior. We need to identify these parts. First of all, we need to define whether that behavior is a good one or a bad one. It might be easier get that done. Okay, because sometimes when we are too involved in parenting, we are too involved with our children, we are too close to our children, we might not be able to define that, oh, it seems like this is a poor behavior. Sometimes we might not see until, for example, other people point out or teachers point out that, your child has been reacting this way. And if that's the case, then you might want to ask, has my child has also been reacting this way at home? Do I need to start, changing that at home? Do I need to start that at home? Identify those behaviors that needs to be changed. Okay, and then remember to set goals or changes that are appropriate for your child. Okay, make sure that it's specific. For example, if a child is just teachers have commented, for example, that has been naughty today. So figure out exactly what is that naughty behavior. Okay, so be specific. Not wanting to follow instructions? Is it not wanting to finish their homework? Is it not wanting to eat or finish their meal? Okay, so that is observable. Okay, observable in the sense that both child and parent are able to observe improvements or regressions. Okay, so make sure that these goals are measurable, meaning that you can see changes within an expected time frame. Meaning, do you want to see changes by today, by this month, or this week? Okay, so set a time or a deadline, or certain timings that you want to set with your child together, and make sure that both child and parent are on the same page. Some examples of defining behaviors are running around the room. Okay, so that's a bad behavior. And then starting homework on time, that would be a good behavior. So define that. Remember that when we are defining behaviors, we also want to focus on the because we don't want our kids to always feel like, how come, when I'm doing something good, you never notice, but when I'm doing something bad, you always notice. Okay, so take note of that. Remember that we need to put a balance again. Not too hot, not too cold. Okay, there needs to be a balance that when we punish our kids for a bad behavior, we also need to take note of the times when they're actually behaving. Okay, sometimes when we focus on the good ones more than the bad ones will actually start to reduce or disappear, because they realize that by doing something good, I actually get more positive attention, rather than when I do something bad, I get caned or I get punished, for example. Okay, once you're able to define the behaviors that you want to change, then we need to what were the triggers, what were the antecedents. Note down common times, common locations, or common situations that your child misbehaves. Okay, normally there might be a pattern. Okay, so if you're the parent, you are the one who spends more time with the child than any other person, probably. Okay, note that down, because you will be the person who is most in power to make behavioral changes, actually. And when you have analyzed common triggers and common patterns, see if you can find out what your child needs. Okay, if your child throws a tantrum, okay, remember that the tantrum is a misbehavior. Yes, so dig deeper and find out why your child threw a tantrum. Was it because night of food? What was it? Okay, so understand if it's a realistic need. Okay, if the need is actually logical. Okay, or if it's not, then should there be consequences? Okay, and once you are able to analyze what commonly happens, be prepared for them to misbehave. Okay, remember, these are children. Okay, they're still growing up. Sometimes they are challenging a limit. Sometimes they are just tired. So they even though they already know, or in the past they have learned to behave themselves, but maybe they're just tired, so they have their limits. So there are times when they might still misbehave, even though you feel, how come there were improvements before, but it seems like we're taking a step back. So just acknowledge all that and understand that it's fine sometimes for them to misbehave. And also, if you're more prepared and you know that, okay, for example, it is always after this time of the day that your child misbehaves, or it's always after you set a certain rule, for example, that they misbehave, then once you're prepared for it, then you might be better at dealing with it rather than, backing down or allowing your child to do what they want instead. Okay, so be prepared for that, and be prepared for the consequence, or the rule or the punishment that you want to enforce. Okay. Before enforcing any form of punishment, make sure to first set very, very clear expectations beforehand. Okay, so that again your child and yourself are aware of what the unwanted behavior is, and what they're expected to do and what they are expected not to do. Okay. Them for the transition, meaning you give them some time. You don't just enforce it like today, this second, without preempting them, that by doing this there's actually a punishment. So prepare them for that, and be prepared that whenever there are changes, there's bound to be chaos. Okay, for example, when you first enforce a new rule, your children are bound to burst, or the volcano is bound to erupt. But remember, again, once you're prepared for that eruption, then you'll be able to cope with it better than if you're not prepared for it. So this transition is also actually not just for your kids, but also for yourselves as parents as well. Sure, your instructions are clear, simple, and concise. Not like a word at once. Okay. And make sure it is communicated appropriately, meaning when both you and your child are concentrating, are free, not when you are watching TV and you're trying to tell your child a new rule, not when your child is playing with their toys, or not when your child is doing their homework. Okay, make sure that it's a time where both parent and child sit down together and talk about it, and that this is a new rule. Okay, for example, you cannot bring your meal outside of the dining room. Okay, so make sure that you set it clearly, and your child also agrees with it as well. Okay, and then if it's the environment impacting your child's behavior, so make sure you also make certain changes and adjustments. For example, if your child is prone to being distracted while they're doing their homework, and that is something that a behavior that you want to reduce, but sometimes it might not really be them. For example, they might not be able to do their homework while another parent or another family member is watching TV in the same room. Okay, so there is one thing you will need to make adjustment to. Either you have to turn it off while they are studying, you might have to reallocate your TV time, or you might have to shift them to another study room, or you might need to teach them to clear their table, their desk, so that there are not so many toys in the same room. There are no attractive stationaries for them to play with while they are doing their homework. Okay, so sometimes certain behaviors can be changed, even with some changes to the environment as well. So see if that helps. Okay. So the last part would be to change the consequences, or to introduce consequences. Sometimes they might not have been appropriate that were on. Okay. Remember that sometimes tough love is needed. Remember that consequences are important for behaviors to change, or either to maintain a certain good behavior. Okay, Not all consequences are equal, not all of them are the same, okay? It will help to provide structure. Children will often need structure and routine. This will fall in line with clear and consistent instructions and rules. Okay, they need to be taught certain things repetitively for them to realize that, oh, okay, I've done this once, I've been punished once, and your child might need to learn that the same consequence will fall upon them if they keep doing it a few more times. That's how they learn. Okay, so it helps them to understand what is eventually unacceptable. Okay, these are some kinds of consequences. Okay, so there are positive consequences and there are negative consequences. These can be done in two ways, which is either to reinforce or either to punish. Reinforce, we want to increase that kind of behavior. So meaning we want to increase the good behavior. When we punish, it's when we want to reduce. So if we look at this, a positive reinforcement, okay, sorry, I forgot to mention, positive consequence will be meaning that we will be adding something, we will be adding a consequence. A negative consequence meaning we will be removing something. So if it's a positive reinforcement, it means that we will be adding on something in order to reinforce, to increase that positive behavior. For example, we give them a praise, we say good job, okay, a verbal praise, or we give them a sweet for doing something good. So a positive reinforcement is when we give something, we add on something in order to increase that behavior, that good behavior. Okay. So when it's a negative reinforcement, it means that we remove something for them to continue to increase that behavior. Okay. For example, when I've earlier mentioned, we remove a destructive toy that they've been playing with while they are doing their homework. So we remove that in order to increase the appropriate behavior, which is to study, to pay attention while they're doing something. Okay. Now moving on to punishment. Again, remember, positive means that we add on something. Okay. So a positive punishment means that we add on an undesirable consequence. Meaning, for example, we require them to do certain house chores that they don't like. Okay, so we add on that as a punishment in order to reduce certain misbehaviors. Meaning, for example, not putting their toys away. Okay, so we punish them by making sure that they do, by adding on a chore for them, which is to put their toys away every time after they play. So that is a positive punishment. Okay? A negative punishment, which is to remove something in order to punish them. Okay, so for example, they are when they want to eat sweets, for example, okay, we want them to eat healthily. Okay, we don't want to be snacking 1 hour before meals. Okay, so in order to do that, in order to reduce that behavior, we confiscate their stash of chips, we confiscate their stash of sweets. Okay, so there's a form of negative punishment. We remove that thing that is desirable for them in order to punish them. Okay, right? So this is how we can play around with it. Okay, so there's different ways for us to improve a certain behavior, to continue a certain behavior, or to reduce a certain behavior. So these are some techniques for us to do so. Okay, so you might need to play around with it, and you might need to tailor your consequences a little bit more than you used to. Okay. To explain time-out. Time-out is a very, very useful form of It's actually a form of negative punishment. Remember, negative means we remove something desirable, and in order to make it punishment and in order to make it reduce. Okay, so yeah, the child will be removed from the misbehaving situation in timeout. Okay, meaning they're away from all things that were fun. Okay, for example, if they were playing and game rule, okay, that they are disobeying, and then suddenly when they're not allowed to do what they want, then they throw a tantrum. Okay, so this is when you can bring them to timeout. Okay, they are taken away from their play toys, their playroom, for example. So it's also away from attention as well. They are actually removed from this situation to be alone on their own in timeout. How do we actually administer it properly? This is also very important. Sometimes parents will come back and ask, I tried administering it, but it didn't work. So let's just go through it and see if maybe some of us have been trying this out, trying timeout, but it doesn't seem to work. So let's talk about it and see whether it's being administered appropriately or not. Okay. But remember, before you start to enforce timeout, remember to set it as remember when we talked about it and rules earlier, set it earlier ahead of time. Okay, if it is something new that you want to introduce, make sure that you have introduced it first. Okay, remember to give time for transitions. Okay, set out clearly that when they throw a tantrum, okay, when they disobey a certain rule, this will be the consequence. Okay, timeout they will need to go timeout. And set up a timeout area at home. Room, it could be the living room, it could be your work area. It depends. It might be a place where you are also able to look out to look at your child, to observe your child. It has to be a little bit further away from you, so they worried. Let's say you have a child that is still quite young. Okay, you're concerned whether they might do something dangerous or whatever. You still want to monitor them, make sure it's still within close observation. Okay, but set it at a corner, okay, where there are no toys, there is nothing at all, there's nobody, no pictures on the wall, no carpet on the wall, nothing at all. So make sure it's a very, very, very boring corner. Okay. So when you want to administer it, provide a warning first if they misbehave. For example, they misbehave and then you say, if you don't do this, do X and X, then you will need to go to timeout. Okay, so that will be a warning. Okay. Then after that warning, if they obey, then that's fine. Okay, but if after that warning they disobey, then immediately administer timeout when they disobey. Okay, refrain from threatening over and over again, meaning when they don't do it, they don't do what they're supposed to. Try not to threaten like you have to go timeout in 1 minute, in 2 minutes, in on to 5. Okay, so try to refrain from threatening or or giving empty threats lah. Okay, so administer that immediately once you notice that they have disobeyed. Okay, so the golden rule is 1 minute per chronological age, meaning you can start as early as 2 years old. Okay, so 2 minutes timeout for a 2-year-old. Okay, you can use a timer. Okay, you can put a timer on area. Okay, how you want to do it. You can either, if you just want to keep the timer to yourself, that's fine as well. Okay, but basically set a timer. You can put it closer to you as well, and at a place where you and the child will be able to hear the timer ring off. Okay, there will be also issues that parents will bring up, such as, what if I put my child there, then they run away, okay, or they don't want to stay there, or they keep crying, okay? If they do run away, put them back firmly and say, you need to be here for 2 minutes until the timer rings, then you can come out, okay? Or, you can set like a mini gate, like a small gate for your child, okay, but still enough space for them to actually walk around or sit comfortably, but basically it will just be a very cold and boring place, okay? If they run, basically put them back. So keep doing it until they realize that no matter how many times they run away, they still need to spend the full 2 minutes there, okay? So reset the timer if your child's ran away and you spend 2 minutes catching them back, and put them back for another 2 minutes until they've completely understood that they just need to be there quietly on their own, okay? To kind of reflect on themselves, what made them throw a tantrum, okay? When they could have just expressed themselves properly rather than just crying out loud. Or crying is fine, but sometimes you can tell if it's just an inappropriate tantrum, okay? And remember that it may not be effective with all misbehaviors. Remember the previous chart, the positive, negative, and the reinforcements and punishments, okay? If your child is throwing a tantrum because he or she doesn't want to do their homework, okay, putting them in timeout will actually be defeating its purpose, because they will be very happy that they can spend a few minutes alone without needing to do their homework, okay? So remember that timeout is a negative punishment. So when you remove them from that behavior, when you remove them from that situation, it's in order to reduce a certain behavior. So you need to consider whether by removing them from that situation, does that reduce this misbehavior, okay? That was timeout in theory, okay? And if you have any more questions about certain situations, you can just let me know. And a bit difficult to put in a lot of scenarios in here, okay? So now that we've talked about your parenting styles, them, and how to manage misbehaviors theoretically, okay? And I would now want to move on to highlight on managing your own anxieties as well, okay? Oftentimes, we are afraid of our children facing poor consequences, okay? We are afraid of them failing or making mistakes, or we're afraid of them going down the road in the wrong way, okay? So, and then we all have a lot of anxieties whether it's going to be fine, or are they going to fall. Sometimes we overcompensate. A lot of us are working parents. We work 8 to 9 hours a day, and then we spend a long time commuting. At the end of the day, we might even spend just a few hours with our kids in the whole 24 hours a day. So sometimes we might feel like we need to overcompensate by agreeing to them, or if we spend we have 2 to 3 hours at night with them, then the whole 2 to 3 hours I'm spending it with them, punishing them. So sometimes we might feel like we need to overcompensate in that sense, but remember, in the long run, it might not be good for your child if we keep on allowing them to do certain things, okay, that they're not supposed to, okay? And remember, behavioral changes needs to be catched on earlier on, okay? When we are able to catch it early, the lesser time we will spend and the lesser efforts we will need to put in to actually change that behavior, compared to if it's a behavior that's been going on for a very long time, it'll be much more difficult to change. So if you're worried about time, think about it that way. If you're allowing too much misbehaviors to go on, it'll be much more difficult for you to turn the table around later on. Then you'll be spending much more time arguing with your child and things like that. Okay. And also take note of if you're also experiencing peer pressure from other parents. Okay. Now all of us come from different backgrounds. We all have some parents are working, some parents are not, some we might come from different socioeconomic statuses, okay? So, and our the resources that we have also might be different. Okay, so remember, try not to compare. Okay, there will be always one parent or one person or one friend who always seems to be, excelling in everything. Remember when we were in school, there will always be one person who's always like perfect in everything, or seemingly perfect in everything. Okay, or that might be that one person who is always doing something extra. Okay, that makes us feel like, I feel like I'm such a bad parent for not making these cute lunch boxes for my kids. Okay, or for just simply cooking sausages and eggs for my kids for lunch. Okay, that you might be feeling like, why am I cooking such unhealthy meals for my kids while other parents can provide such healthy meals and laying it out in a very pretty layout. So be aware of all that and tell yourself that it's actually fine. Okay. When we're talking about if you feel like you're a bad parent, okay, try to define to yourself instead what is a bad parent like. Okay, what is a truly bad parent like, and how far? Then you might actually notice that you are so much further than you think you are from being a bad parent. Okay, all right. We'll do some reflection. Understand your own emotions. How do you feel? Okay, at times when you lash out towards your child. What are the common behaviors that your child does that make you feel this way? Reasonable. Sometimes our children are really, very naughty, for example, and it might be very normal for you to actually lose your temper so much. Okay, so sometimes it might be fine. Okay, so understand how it affects you. How did you react? Okay, even though our children can be, so challenging at times, how did you react? Is it in a way that you would have wanted it to be? Okay, remember that our emotions and our actions are different. Having a certain emotion, for example, anger, that is so intense, very normal. Okay, so it all depends on how we react in light of that anger. We lose control by caning our kids to the extent that they're bleeding or they're hurt. Okay, if it's just if it's just you scolding and then it might not be that bad. Okay, so just pay attention to the action instead than your own emotion. So try not to blame yourself for feeling angry. Okay, so realize how you feel. Okay, rather than blaming yourself from being a very humane parent. Okay. Okay. Understand what it means when you feel that way and when you react this way. Okay, what does it mean to yourself as a parent? Like I mentioned earlier, by just doing something lesser or by doing something that you feel like it's not appropriate. Sometimes we might cane a little bit overboard, but what does it mean to myself as a parent? Does it mean that I'm a very, very bad parent? Okay. Again, try not to compare. And if sometimes we do lose a bit of control, remember it's fine, we're all human beings. Okay. If we keep trying to blame ourselves or spend so much time trying to, think about what we've done wrong, we might fail to actually notice, or we might fail to actually put in time and effort to focus on what we can actually do right instead. Okay. Right. And then lastly, remember to take care of yourself. Time out yourself if you need to. So time out might not actually only be for kids, but it might be for yourself as well. The 2 minutes, 2 or 3 or 5, 4 or 5 minutes might be enough for yourself to take a deep breath, to relax, to just go and pop a chocolate in your mouth to make you feel better, or go to the toilet and go drink some water. So time out yourself if you need to. If you feel like you cannot take it, okay, if you're going to lose your temper, you're going to lose control. So time out yourself and your child, and then come back later. And when you come back to your child after that timeout, you don't need to nag or criticize much more on that misbehavior. Basically, just after that timeout, just ask your child to do or not do what they were supposed to earlier. Okay, and then no need to mention it again, no need to nag, no need to lecture anymore. Just if they do what they're supposed to do, then move on to the next thing. Okay. Prioritize your self-care time. Make sure that you still have time to rest and all that, eat well and sleep well. Okay, and let loose. Sometimes if they just eat too much of snacks in a day and you're so tired already that week, it's been a heavy week, it's been a bad day, just close one eye and just let it loose and maybe just enjoy some snacks with your kid. And so remember, it's fine to not uphold everything right all the time. Look at this here. The quickest way for a parent to get a child's attention sometimes is actually to sit down and look comfortable. But sometimes sitting down and feeling relaxed might actually calm down our kids as well. Remember how when we sometimes what our teachers need to do is they just need to be quiet for a few minutes. Students will realize that, hey, something is wrong. Our teacher is not scolding, not yelling, but the teacher is so quiet. Okay, so it's the same thing. If we can't, we feel like we just don't want to have the energy to scold, to yell. Sometimes just sit down, just look at them, and just be quiet. And this is also a form of timeout, isn't it? So time out yourself and time out your child. Okay. Finish up. Just some more quick tips for us to remember. Just some rules for us to follow by, to remember that while we are doing all this parenting, there are still some things that we need to follow. Remember, as I've mentioned, do not ignore a misbehavior immediately or as soon as you can figure out what kind of consequences that needs to be imposed on. Okay, remember, the longer it has been for that behavior, for that misbehavior, the more difficult it is for you to change, and the more time you will need to spend and more effort you need to spend to change that. Also, take it one step at a time. Remember, kids are kids, okay? They cannot take too much at a time. So, address one misbehavior at a time, okay? Like potty training, for example, we take one milestone at a time, isn't it? Potty train them, and after that we teach them to eat, and then we teach them to do other things. So it's the same. Even if your child is already at toddler age 3, 4, 5, you might think that they are capable of reasoning, okay? But sometimes they still need to take it one step at a time, okay? So just remember routines and structure are very important. Kids learn through a repetitive teaching, and by a regular routine, they learn that if my mom says this, it means this, because every time I do this, I get punished. So you need to make sure that it's routine, it's consistent, and the rules are simple. Okay? And remember, you are the parent, not your child. Be firm and learn to practice that. When you say no, it really means no. Okay? And they might try to negotiate, and they might try to debate. But remember that sometimes you can analyze whether their requests, are they logical or not. If it's not, then just be firm and say that no, it's just no. No, there's no room for debate. Okay, then you can just walk away, or you can just immediately, like I mentioned earlier, try not to threaten, count, so just immediately impose, put on, reinforce that punishment that you have actually told them before earlier on. Okay, remember that you need to tell them first, and then when you've done that before, then just be firm. Just go all out and say no. Okay. Be clear and consistent. This is for both parents or all caregivers. Some of us our children might be spending a lot of time with with their grandparents, for example. Okay, so make sure that everybody is on the same page. Everybody is doing the same thing. You need to know that mom is doing this, so dad is also doing this, and not they need to learn that they cannot go and to the other parent and try to seek some leeway to the situation. Okay. And yeah, refrain from repeated threatening. That one we've got. And last one is be patient. This is a lifelong journey, so just be patient and remember that throughout their childhood there will always be misbehaviors all the time. Be patient and take it one step at a time. And remember, if you want to do it in a more democratic manner, you can always involve your child in rule setting. Discuss with them, let them have a choice. Remember that when you're setting expectations, you say they cannot eat sweets for 1 whole month. Ask yourself whether it's reasonable, okay? Ask your child if they're able to do it, to not eat sweets at all for 1 whole month, okay? So you might need to discuss with them in a healthy discussion whether, okay, what is a doable limit? Is it eating sweets once a week? Eating sweets twice a weekly frequency? Okay, so discuss whether which one is acceptable and which one is, sometimes we might realize that our expectations are too harsh. Okay, so this is to prevent us from going overboard, and it's also to encourage your child to think whether, okay, the idea is I cannot eat too much sweets, I cannot eat too much junk food, but it's not that I can't at all. Okay, so they also need to learn that sometimes, life cannot be perfect, but there needs to be a good balance, basically. So even if such simple things as dietary habits, okay. And yep, remember also to encourage them to express themselves, teach them to identify their emotions, teach them to verbalize their thoughts. So this is what you can do in your healthy discussion. It's a feelings chart, an example of a feelings chart. Teach your child to point out and to identify how they're feeling. It is a very simple example that of a good feelings chart, with pictures for them to see, how does happy look like, how does proud look like, how does embarrassed look like, how does shy look like. Okay, so you can stick it, in their playroom or in the house somewhere. So when they are crying or they are throwing a tantrum after timeout, you can ask them, what made you feel this way? Okay, how were you actually feeling? Can you tell me? Do you want to talk about it? And they can ask them to go to the chart and point out. They can look at it and see, I think I'm feeling shy. I think I was feeling annoyed. And ask them, why were you feeling annoyed? That they can talk about it. Okay. So that underneath every behavior, there's a feeling, and beneath every feeling, there's always a need. Sometimes addressing the need itself might change the behavior. Okay, so sometimes by just simply hearing them out, they might realize, my parents will listen. There's no need to throw a tantrum. There's no need to, throw a chair, flip the table. Okay, so sometimes you'll learn that, and then I can be angry, and that's fine. After I cry, I can always talk to my parents. Why did I feel that way? Okay. Then you will notice that when you hear them out more, when they learn to express themselves more, the tantrums, might slowly disappear. Okay, right? So we've reached the. I hope that. As I've mentioned earlier at the very beginning, this will be quite heavy and theoretical sharing, but I hope it was clear enough. And if there are more questions or you need more me to share more examples, feel free to let me know. Okay, but basically, remember to tell yourself that there is no such thing as a perfect parent. Okay, the friends whom we see, who we feel like seem to be the most perfect parents, they might still be also struggling in other areas. Your friend who's making perfect lunch boxes for their children, they might be struggling with other things, other behaviors at home as well. Okay, because every child is different. Okay, and every child misbehaves. Okay, so just be there for your child. Just be there. Just listen. Talk to them. There's no perfect solution. Remember. At the end of the day, sometimes having a healthy discussion with your child might help you to learn as well that, sometimes I might be exposing too high of an expectation. Sometimes I need to understand that children also have limitations. Sometimes I need to understand that I also have limitations. For example, if you already set a very high expectation, when your child tells you that they can't do it, it might also be a wake-up call for you to question yourself whether, I said such thing, am I able to also monitor so closely? Okay, am I also, if I apply it to an adult like myself, am I able to also do it? Or if you look back towards your childhood, are you also practicing a parenting style that your parents have been practicing to you, instead that you told yourself as a child that when I grow up, I want to change the way I parent my kids in the future. Okay, so remember, encourage healthy discussions, listen more. Okay, but also if you are still the parent, you still need to be firm. If you, after a discussion, you feel like your child's expectations, your child's behaviors is still irrational, still not logical, then just go ahead and enforce that rule and that punishment as what you have already said before. Okay, so remember, just be there. As time passes, our child will just remember that our parents were there for us. Okay, and that's the most important. So thank you very much for tuning in today. And here I've just put up my clinic hours and my contact and my email as well. If you feel like it's a very more personal topic that you want to ask, you can just feel free to reach out and set an appointment. Or if you just have a quick question, you just need a quick example, then just also feel free to shoot me an email and I'll be happy to answer them. Or otherwise, you can just put it in the comment section. I'll try to answer them later on. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kang, for the sharing. Please stay tuned as we also have an upcoming video about development delays in children. With that said, thank you all for watching and have a nice day.